Welcome everyone to GiveSignup and RunSignup's first webinar in our Event Contingency Plan webinar series. This webinar is titled Building Future-Proof Events for Fall. My name is Charnel Williams. I'm the VP of Marketing here at GiveSignup RunSignup, and I will be your webinar organizer and moderator today. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to Brian and Steve.
Great. Thank you, Charnel. So I'm Brian Jenkins, and Steve, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, glad to be here with everybody. I'm Steve Bingham-Hawk. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at RunSignup.
Great, so we're going to take turns. So if you don't like one of us as a speaker, hopefully you'll like the other, and we'll be switching back and forth to keep it hopefully interesting for everybody. What we're gonna do today is just talk about some of the different options for you to consider for how do you future-proof events, because clearly the pandemic has changed how we approach events. So we're going to walk you through some of our best tips and tricks on how to have contingency plans. So kind of an overview of our agenda today. We're going to give a little bit of an overview of GiveSignup, RunSignup for those of you who are not familiar with it. We're going to talk about some of the things that we learned in 2020. We're going to review our roadmap. We're going to share some of our best success stories and how other customers like you have approached this problem. And then we're also going to have a section for questions. We do have some pre-prepared questions just to make sure that we flush out hopefully useful topics for everyone. But if you have additional questions, please submit them in the chat box. So we're going to go ahead and introduce GiveSignup and RunSignup. So our simple saying is raise more, save time, easy. So what is the GiveSignup, RunSignup platform? So what we were building is an all-in-one supporter engagement platform. So what this means is that as a nonprofit and 95% of our organizations that work with us are nonprofits, they have all sorts of data that they're collecting through different types of campaigns. So that can be run, walk, rides, which most people are familiar with us for. That could be fundraising, and we have more and more organizations that are doing say a run or a walk with fundraising or standalone fundraising. It could be recurring giving or ticket events. That's all flowing into a single database that you have access to. So you can see not only has this person participated in 2 of your events, they fundraised $1,000, they've referred 5 friends, and they just became a recurring giver. You can see all of that in one dashboard without having to pull complicated reports. And then we make it easy for you to connect to other platforms like Salesforce or Kindful or Microsoft Dynamics or Network for Good through our integration partner, Reg Forward. And our goal is always to keep your mission first and not necessarily, we don't want your data for other purposes. We want to collect your data so you can help better understand your supporters. So a little overview on GiveSignup, RunSignup. We have been around since 2010. Our focus is very much technology, sometimes to our own detriment, that we really do try to focus on building scalable platforms that our customers can use at any time, anywhere in the world, so that they can not have to pay subscription fees or monthly fees. Our goal is to keep the platform free and easy to use. Our biggest focus is events and event fundraising. We were what's called a payment facilitator. A payment facilitator is a way for us to be able to have the funds flow directly to organizations that work with us without us taking possession of the funds, but also help you reconcile those payments and make it easy for you to figure out how much money you've raised. The other thing that's really important is that we get this question quite often. RunSignup and GiveSignup are one platform. They have 2 purposes, but it is one platform, meaning it's one database talking to everything. And probably one of the more impressive things is that we work with 25,000 events a year, and in total, we've helped raise over $1.3 billion for our customers. So GiveSignup, RunSignup is used by about 9,000 nonprofits. I mentioned 25,000 events, and also just want to hammer home, it is free. So there is no, and what I mean by free, yes, we do charge processing fees, but there's no setup fee or monthly fee charged to the organization to use the platform. And you can absolutely do free events on our system, and we encourage it. And so our goal is to build purpose-built fundraising technology for nonprofits to help them with their event fundraising and online giving. So this image is one of the ways that we've tried to help people understand, how the platform works and what is specific for nonprofits versus what's, for maybe more of our runs or walks. So on the left-hand side, you can see there's ticket events, fundraising campaigns, and online donations. On the right-hand side, this is where the more the run or our clubs, such as like local running club, local bike club, things like that, would be using our membership platform, and then our run, walk, ride product, which is by far our most popular and the thing that most people are familiar with. And then finally, on the right-hand side, we have a specific set of tools for the timers. So those are people who actually calculate the results if there's a race and there's results involved. So we've built a suite of tools called the Race Day Suite that helps those people check participants in or do live results, et cetera. So now I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Brian. So lessons from 2020, I think that's kind of an understatement, I don't know how you make that phrase a little bit bigger, right? We learned a lot about ourselves as individuals, as organizations, as organizers of events. And I think that what we wanted to share are some learnings that we have seen over, if you want to go to the next slide there, Brian. Let's see. So just to incorporate that or to encompass that, you've got this, right? So we have learned that people are still wanting to participate even in a pandemic, right? And they want to support you and they want to give. I'm an organizer actually of events, have been for about 16 years, and we saw some of the events this past year have some of their best years ever. In terms of peer-to-peer fundraising. So people still want, there's not a reason to cancel. People still want to engage. People still want to participate in some way. And we are realizing that hybrid and virtual events absolutely work. 40% of the races last year were virtual, and 64% were women. So that's important to know when you're doing your apparel orders. Make sure you're ordering women's sizes if that's in your budget. They will appreciate that. And then 56% of our virtual participants were over 40. So that's another important key data point for demographics. So with our virtual options, you can expand your reach and drive participation from supporters around the world. That one group, the American Brain Tumor Association, saw their largest fundraising team came from a group in New Orleans where they've never had a walk before because they offered a virtual event across the country. Anybody could participate. So you're going to unlock supporters and people that care about you that you didn't even know you had. Giving participants peace of mind by guaranteeing value from the event no matter what happens, right? People don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? We open up our news apps and hope that everything hasn't completely changed, right? And so give them some sort of stability. They may not know if a live event can happen, but offering a virtual or hybrid, if a hybrid moves to completely virtual, at least they know they're not going to lose their money. They're not going to get deferred. They're going to have an option to participate and support you this year. And then, of course, providing an opportunity for people to show support for your cause. People still want to be attached, especially during these really tough times. They want to be able to go on social media and let people know I'm doing this race, whether it's virtual or live, I'm supporting this cause. All right, so here's a nice quote from one of our events. So we were able to engage people from all over the country and all over the world, representing every continent except Antarctica with the switch to virtual. We were also able to expand the race offerings beyond what we would have done together. Right, so with a virtual event, you can do things that you previously weren't doing in a live event. Let's go to the next slide. So the technology to support all of this great stuff. So flexible registration and ticket options to differentiate between virtual and in-person participation. So you can sell the live ticket by itself and a virtual one, then you can pivot easily and transfer folks from the in-person to virtual seamlessly, easy for your participants to manage on their end. And there's options for standalone donations to encourage giving even when participation isn't possible. So again, they can just flip any of their physical participation in your event to efforts in fundraising and use their time spent on that to support the cause that they care about. And people still want to give. So if I haven't harped on that enough, I'm going to keep going. So we had an increase of 5% in the US giving in 2020, 69% in giving by individuals in 2020, and an increase of 25% in Giving Tuesday donations to 2020. So these are huge numbers. These are huge increases. So whether you're a nonprofit working with a charity partner, keep the cause front and center to remind people why they should join. So include your nonprofit logo in your event logo now. Splash that onto the image that you use for your banner image. Really hit it home for people. And events, whether it's virtual or live, give people a way to support a cause that is fun and interactive. And that's the cool thing, is that we offer a lot of tools, and we're going to get into that into the section that I cover after we flip back to Brian for a little bit to talk about the actual tools that expand and do things for your event that you never even thought you could. And offering options for giving. So again, the standalone donations to your event, you can use donation forms, you can turn on peer-to-peer fundraising, so many levels of engagement on the fundraising side. And here is if you need more proof, we're going to give another example. The annual Women's Distance Festival 5K, they had record participation over the pandemic, 1,279 people, 2 times as many donations, a total net of 60K compared to 43K, and they represented 19 states. So again, you're just expanding your reach by going virtual. And you're always more focused on the charity than the racing when you're doing virtual. You're broadly embraced by supporters. Again, people, the playing field is level on virtual because you're not tied to any geographic location. Again, record-setting attendance and donations, and learned lessons about communications and trained participations about things like packet mailing, digital bibs. So these are new kind of things that we're seeing in the industry that are now becoming new expectations, and we're learning those and now teaching our participants what to expect from us. And just keeping it going with that, talking about some more stats there on the left there, 30% of the participants made an additional donation on top of their participation, and 52% joined a team. So remember to turn on groups and teams and RunSignup. It's a great tool to use. Let's see, unlimited participation, in-person option, that was 42% of the participants, and the virtual option was 27%. Encourage social through teams. So again, letting people engage when they're not able to get in person with each other, having those digital connections by turning on groups and teams. You're doing that in RunSignup with our race pages. And participation was down slightly from 2019, but the donations were still up 62% compared to 2019. So those that are participating in your virtual events, they're showing up bigger in a way than maybe they ever have before. So that's when you really lean into them. You turn on the automated email settings, you communicate constantly with them so that they are all engaged, because those folks are more all in than they've ever been before. And here's some just awesome pictures from their race here. There's that $43,000 check. So very cool. All right, so I think we're going to switch back over to Brian now.
Yeah, so let's talk about, let's make a roadmap of how do you accomplish some of these goals. So how do we build future-proof events? So we like to say we've planned for this, you've trained for this. So what we're trying to get you to do is, many of the people that we work with are incredibly creative, is encouraging that creativity and be proactive. And the other thing that's really important, I can't emphasize this enough, is there is a real desire to postpone. And I would highly encourage people to, even if it is virtual only, what kind of creative ideas can you come up with that you can execute upon that would keep you engaged with your supporters? Because that's the most important thing, is that if you lose awareness, it's very hard to get it back. So let's talk about what you can't control, which is a lot. So you can't control the current number of people that maybe currently have COVID in your area. You can't control the local or state requirements, although you can, act in a way that is, hopefully representative of what the local and state guidelines are, because maybe other people, maybe they kind of don't follow those guidelines, but you always can act within that. The other is extreme weather. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. And around this time of year is when we start paying attention to the tropics, and you start seeing hurricanes and things like that. So we also need to pay attention to those things. So you definitely can't control any of those things. So what should you do? You should make sure that you have mapped out every possibility that you can reasonably account for. Make sure that you have a plan. If you don't have a plan, that will show when adversity comes up and you don't have a great response to it. If you have a plan A, B, and C, and D of what you're going to do if some of these things you can't control come up, you look extremely professional. And Steve mentioned something about communication. if you have some of this communication kind of thought out or what you're going to do, it looks so professional and people respond much better than kind of a haphazard response. So we like to visualize, what we can control. First of all, we can plan. We can understand our location. We can understand our hybrid options. We can plan virtual events. What I was saying before, communicating, and then diversifying. So those are all things that are inside of our control, and we want to try to, write down in these bubbles, our plans and locations, et cetera, to say, well, how can we get from here to there? So here's kind of our checklist. So as I mentioned earlier, 95% of the events that we work with are organized or connected to a nonprofit. So make sure that you have, event options, and those options could potentially increase participation, such as a virtual event. You can set up custom pricing, such as, hey, this pricing tier includes a hoodie. This pricing tier is different for the 10K versus the 5K. You could potentially price it all the same if it's a completely virtual event. Then within your communication plan, you really want to make sure that you understand how long, if someone signs up for my virtual event, is it going to take for an item to be shipped and actually received by the participant? Because if you're kind of encouraging people to have their shirt and wear it and take a picture and tag it on Instagram, if they don't have it on event day, then they can't do anything with it. So you really need to make sure that you have those timelines kind of laid out if you're doing that type of promotion, saying, hey, wear our teal shirt on race day. That may not be feasible if people are signing up a week before the event. And then finally, make sure that you have all of your event day processes laid out. So location matters. Earlier this year and in the fall of last year, many places were not even allowing permits. Some places now are limiting permits, or there's a few places that have actually, denied permits. So if that's something that is a concern and you still really want to push forward with an in-person event, one of the things that's important to remember is that private locations, as long as they're following kind of state and local guidelines, the parks may have, your local park may have to have restrictions on it that a private location, I'm just going to use like a road racetrack. They can say, hey, well, as long as everyone wears a mask and does this, then you can put on the event. That can open up additional options. I've seen golf courses, I've seen private neighborhoods used for events because, these are outdoor events with lots of space. And quite often, your local municipality is dealing with many other problems and may not be able to, handle an event at this time. So if you are working with the municipality, make sure that you are, over communicating, so you have clear outlines of what you're going to do, when they need things, and to continually communicate with them so that they understand that you are paying attention to the details. One of the other things that we would encourage is that, if your event is typically, say, 200 people, and you typically need X amount of space, if you can get double that amount of space, so people have more room to move around, more room to park, or more room to kind of have space in the start line area, et cetera, that's a great idea, and it can be very beneficial. Another thing is to, in many areas, courses kind of meander through a number of neighborhoods because they're beautiful and it's interesting. Loop courses are becoming more popular again because it's using less space, and you may be dealing with limitations on a private piece of property that requires you to rethink your course, and don't let that be a deterrent, because having that event may be more important than just the beautiful neighborhood that you ran through. Some of the other ideas that we might suggest is separate starts and finish lines, which kind of keeps people separated, so post race they're not kind of mingling hopefully quite as much. And we also would encourage people to avoid crowded areas, and if you do have a mask mandate in your area, signage is huge. So just having simple signs to just remind people about it, and most of the time people with a kind reminder will easily kind of follow on. And the last thing is that outdoors is definitely your best option. So examples of events, no surprise here, run, walk, rides, which is something we're very, very familiar with, golf tournaments, festivals, dinner under the stars or dinners under a tent. Those are great. cornhole tournaments, pickleball tournaments. I was talking to one of our team members today. We were helping somebody set up a pickleball tournament. If you're not on pickleball is like the hottest thing in the country right now. Kayaking, barbecue lunches, scavenger hunts, these types of things are easy to kind of socially distance or space people out and have the great outdoors to do. Clearly not great solutions on rainy days or in the wintertime, but in the decent weather of the fall, these are all great options. One other thing to mention is, almost missed it, is that if this is something that really intrigues you and you want to think about it a little bit more, we actually have another webinar on Tuesday, August 24th at 1 p.m. that we're going to be going into greater detail about pivoting to outside events, because many nonprofits do galas or other things like that, and looking at some of these others as potential awareness and fundraisers. So hybrid events, we think hybrid events for the next several years will become just very common. And to define what a hybrid event is, because I know that could be confusing, is that means that you would have an in-person event option as well as a virtual option. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable, they're immune compromised, things like that, they don't want to come to your event, but they love what you do and they want to support you and they want to participate in the Instagram hashtag, they can do that as a virtual participant. But then those who want to participate in person, you can kind of have a larger potential audience then. And it's also quite a bit more inclusive. And this also, this is something we're going to drill into a little bit more, is this is your built-in contingency plan, meaning that if you're planning for a hybrid event, that means that you have a virtual component built out, and a lot of the logistics of like, how are we going to communicate to people? What are we going to communicate? How are we going to get people their swag or their gifts? You're going to have all that stuff planned out for virtual. And if you do need to completely pivot virtual, you've already done quite a bit of that legwork already. So, here's a couple examples, is that an in-person 5K with an in-person 5K and a virtual 5K. A gala with in-person attendees that are local, but they could potentially pick up the meal and dine at home, and you could have like a recorded version of a small group of people that are recognizing the best volunteers in the area, or et cetera. And then the final is that this is something that the RunSignup team has become very familiar with, is we do our symposium. It's been all virtual, with people streaming all over the country. So that's something that we've gotten very used to and had to learn a lot about. How do you communicate and how do you put together a schedule so people can get from one meeting to the next? So technology for the hybrid, I want to call out the image on the right-hand side. So what we have built into the platform is the ability for you to kind of build call-outs. So on the call-outs, these may be a little hard to see on your screen, but you can see there's a little live call-out above the marathon, the half marathon, but then you have a little virtual call-out above the virtual half marathon. This helps clarify, like, is this an in-person event or is this a virtual event? You can actually have these little call-outs above that, so that when people are getting to the point of buying, it should be relatively clear to them, what am I purchasing? So we believe in the 99% rule. 99% of the time, it's best to set up your virtual options and live options as separate events. And the reason is just for clarity and reporting purposes. So we really think it's very good to have that live, and people use different language, live in-person 5K versus virtual 5K, so that, because you got to remember, someone's on their phone or they're just quickly trying to sign up. We want to make it super clear what they're signing up for. The most important thing too about this process is that it is very flexible. So the platform is built in a way that we can handle in one place the in-person option and the virtual option. You do not have to set up two completely different campaigns. This can be all accomplished within one campaign. And if you do need to change something, we have tools, and our team can help you with transferring all the in-person people to the virtual. We also can help you with deferrals or transfers if you're putting on another event. So we have the tools in play if you do need to make a change to the status of the event. So I'm going to hand this back over to Steve.
All right, thanks, Brian. That's a lot of really helpful information, and I'm going to drill down even deeper with some of our tools. Goes with some of the nuts and bolts that I know a lot of you are interested in sort of either learning or getting a refresher on, or didn't even know that we offered. So First, custom questions for additional information. Maybe you want to find out a little bit more out demographics wise, or kind of what your supporters look like for future engagements, since that you're not able to maybe do some traditional in-person engagements. Shipping features. So we have several ways that you can customize this, such that if you've got a virtual option and a live option, that only the shipping questions populate for the virtual folks, or if they're adding on a shipping option, whether they're live or virtual, and paying extra for that, and you can give both those options, then they are able to, you can make it so that it only appears for those certain folks. So that way you're not, misrepresenting and making it a really custom registration experience for everybody. Then cover pages to customize website information. So this is where you can transform what looks like a traditional registration page into something very dynamic, looking like an actual website. And we have lots of organizers and races and groups out there that are using our cover pages that are folded into the registration form, and using that as their straight up website. They're not even going to a WordPress site anymore. And that cuts half of your updates down. We all know how hard it is to remember to update every single thing that changes. Save yourself by doing it all in one site, and you can do that with RunSignup. Setting up digital rewards like fundraiser milestones, digital bibs, and finisher certificates. So these are all these cool new features that I alluded to earlier that maybe you never thought about using for your event. They actually have applications to both live and virtual, and they can gamify the whole experience so that it's fun and interactive and gives them just more pieces to touch. Again, since if you're not going to be able to be in person. And then the photo platform. So a lot of us do photos on site, offering a way for people to upload for virtual events. We have that capability. And again, that people like that touch point to feel like they are participating in a digital way by uploading a photo, by entering their results. So give them those tools, and we have those available to you. So a better virtual event. So when we first started, everybody, back in March or whatnot, everyone was sort of like figuring things out. And I remember one race was using, for 4,000 people, was using a Google form to collect results. That would be insane now that we know that there's much better ways to do it. We offer those better ways where it is in the user's hands, and that way they get to interact with the data and see how they compare to their fellow participants all across the country, as well as within their groups and across other groups. So people expect more, so make sure you're offering those tools. And with so many virtual events out there and hybrid events, you set yourself apart. Right? So you can show how, these folks are maybe offering a simple experience. We're offering one that is easy to use, but also very deep and very rich. So if you have to go for fully virtual, making sure that you have these pieces in place, even when you've got a hybrid, is important so that you can easily pivot when you have to go full on. So enhancing the virtual event. So some of these I've mentioned so far, but just to make sure we cover in a full list. For our run, walks, and rides, Race Joy Anywhere. Now, for those, that might be a new term to some people. Race Joy is incredible, you guys. You can take a race day experience and put that into the hands of your participants, where they're getting audio announcements while they're participating. They can record their actual participation. They can send cheers to people that are participating, or mom who's watching you in Kansas City and mom's in Florida, she can send cheers while her child is out participating. Just really cool interactive features. The digital bibs that are easy for folks to download. They can print them off and wear them and walk around wherever they participate in their event. Playlists, so we can have Spotify playlist integration, so you can curate a nice list of songs so that people are engaged and it's appropriate for your theme. Finisher certificate, so again, like the digital bibs, they can download those, print those off, put those on the corkboard or on the fridge. The milestones and badges. So with challenges, if you're not familiar with those versus virtual races, so instead of a virtual race where you're completing one distance in one session, a challenge you're completing over many sessions. So you might have a goal of 100 miles that you'll complete over 30 days, and then you get to plan out how you're going to do that. But with the milestones, you're going to be able to send messages to folks and be like, congratulations, you got to 10 miles. And you can even set it up such that there's a geographic experience where maybe you're going through all 5 national parks in Utah, and you want to tell people you've reached the Arches National Park by going this many miles. And so again, it's that gamifying, making it a really fun experience. And then the virtual results, being able to upload those, like I mentioned, and compare against your fellow participants, and then uploading the photos. And then for our ticket events on the GiveSignup side, so streaming via Facebook, Instagram, and Zoom, interacting on Facebook groups, using hashtags, as many as possible, to get that engagement and reach as many people as possible. The photo sharing on Facebook, as well as contests. And then communication. So again, I think I've hit it, Brian's hit it, we're going to keep hitting it. So this is trust is a big word here. So making sure that people understand that you realize that, things may change. And so you're going to be able to offer them options. Maybe communicate what your refund policy is, or your deferral process, where maybe that was just an FAQ item before, and now you put that front and center. Again, keeping your mission and the impact front of mind. So don't put that down the list and all the features. Maybe that's your first bullet point of what you get with your registration. And then the second one is your t-shirt, right? Really remind them that they're doing something good in the world with their participation. And then continuous supporter engagement is helping convert supporters into donors and fundraisers in the future. So you're taking a single experience or a single engagement and turning that into potentially a lifelong relationship by using the tools that we offer. So going into those tools, and we'll go a little bit on the next slide there to the cover page. So this is what I alluded to before, where you can actually set up a functional website that has your registration form and site already incorporated into it. So make sure you're giving them the details about when and where the event is, or if they're doing a virtual race or it's hybrid, when and where can they do it? That's one of the biggest questions, is where do I do my virtual? How do I do this? Let them know this is your choice. That's the beauty of it. It's flexible, and you can do it wherever is most comfortable for you. What's included? Again, a nice bullet point list, so it's really clear. When before you would show up for an event day for a live event, and we kind of, the organizer just tells you what's going on, and you're sort of directed to a start line. So even more important to let them know all of those features that they get. And then the in-person and virtual options. So distinguishing using our cover page elements, using the double columns to quickly have a nice comparison over what is different between the live and the virtual experience. And then creating an FAQ on your event website. So again, that is, I'm going to harp on it again, that's such a big question. How do virtual events work? So make sure you have some points on that, and use our amazing help guides to help people navigate their registration, whether it's live or virtual. We have incredible resources. You can literally go into any search engine and type in, as an organizer, how do I add a coupon, RunSignup? The first hit you'll get is the article that you need with the tutorial and the video to set it up. Or if a participant goes on and you want to aggregate all of those articles into a nice list, just say, how do I edit my registration? RunSignup. That first article that appears, that's going to be the one that you link to. And that takes some of the stress off of you. I know a lot of us are dealing with less staff, less time, more commitments at home, as people may still be out of daycare or school. So make it easy on yourself by arming your participants with these tools to help themselves. And then confirmation emails and pre-event emails on the communication piece. So making sure that they know the details of the location and the schedule for race day, and you can edit that in your confirmation email under notifications. Talking about social distancing protocols, so people understand, is a mask required? We are seeing some events. Chicago Marathon just recently announced a couple of days ago that they are requiring vaccinations or proof of a negative test. So if that's the situation for you, make sure people know that in advance. The deadline and process for switching to virtual, if you're still going to offer the hybrid options. swag pickup info. And remember, just because you're virtual, you don't have to mail everything out. So you can do safe pickups at maybe your local running store, which can help save on costs, or you can charge an additional fee for people to upgrade to that shipping option. And letting them know to have their confirmation available, because we have a really awesome QR code that is on every single registration, and using the race day check-in app makes it so easy to just use your camera, the camera on your phone. Volunteers or staff, anybody can do this and quickly scan somebody in, see what their race is, see the swag they're getting, get them on their way. And then to set up corrals. So a lot of people with social distancing measures, taking a normal start time of maybe 7 a.m. and then for your full marathon and doing your half at 7:05, spread that out, and you can actually allow people to pick their corrals when they register. So that takes another piece off of you, where you're not having to assign it, and then people get into the corral that they want to with their friends. And then for virtual events, making sure that you talk about how it works. What is the span of time? Are you doing this over a weekend, over a week, over a month, several months for a challenge maybe? Make sure they understand when they can participate and when they need to submit their results. If they are going to transfer to an in-person, what's that deadline? The swag shipping timeline. So yeah, at some point you're going to have to start shipping this stuff out, and you might be ordering in batches, and you want to make sure that people just know that I think most people, as long as they know when they're going to get it, are okay. And if there's delays, make sure people know that, instead of just leaving it out in the open for them to figure out and contact you. So that way you're giving that really stellar customer service. And then how do you submit results? So it's very intuitive on our site, but help them out and give them those links in your emails that you're sending out to them. Set up registration follow-up emails so that at 7 days later, they're getting this information. You sort of set it and forget it with registrations, but keep engaged with them and give them little tips and tricks about how the event works as you move on. Maybe every couple of weeks you're sending out these notifications. And then really cool option is if you do need to postpone or cancel, or even just you can actually manipulate the pop-up system that was designed for postponing and cancel to say anything you want as a pop-up box, and just let folks know, hey, remember, you need to be masked up, or remember, you need to provide your proof of vaccination or your negative test. So all these pieces can be automated, and with just a little bit of time in the setup in the beginning, it takes so much work off your plate to have to figure out and answer and respond to later in the process. All right, so diversification, big piece of all of this, and I'm going to turn it back over to Brian, who's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the one last thing to mention from a tool standpoint is that we do actually have a cancel and postpone tool. We truly hope you don't have to use it. But the most important thing that it does is it creates a pop-up for every single person that lands on your page, so that you can then, and this can even be used, you can see in this example, it says gates opened even earlier. This allows you to kind of create a pop-up on your page that no one can read anything on the page until they click the close button, to make sure that you're even more effectively communicating. So diversify. So the message here is, some of the organizations we work with have very large annual fundraiser events, which are great ways to solicit sponsors and to generate awareness in your community about what you're doing. And so what we try to recommend is, look at options that have low lift. So we gave an example here of 4 virtual cooking classes. We kind of want to point out that in some ways, connecting with more people may not be as necessary as having people who have a strong connection to your organization, because it's a more personal connection. So if this virtual cooking class has 8 people in it, and everybody gets to interact with each other, along with you as the nonprofit kind of putting on this event, that can be very helpful. And so it can be also more inclusive, so lots of different types of people can participate in that. Say a gala or something like that, it may just be priced out for some of the people who truly do believe in what you're doing and would love to support it. So here's some success stories that we want to walk you through. So Negative Split, this is an event management company that's based out of Houston, Texas, that we work with. They have been helping others successfully hold hybrid and virtual races since July of 2020. And you can actually, check out Negative Split and Google them, and they could, if you're overwhelmed by the idea of doing a virtual race, but you've got a great idea and you've got a great, marketing group to work with, Negative Split can help you get all the things put together and shipped out and all that type of stuff. So you can use an extended schedule. That's one of their recommendations, to multiple days, staggering start times, and having grab and go snacks, because as you know, many if you're doing an in-person event, people kind of expect food and drinks and things like that, and that's become problematic. So people have kind of put those into bags so people can kind of grab those and head on. So make sure that you have some really cool swag and perks that work in lieu of, like, if you had like a band or something like that at your event, and maybe that's just not feasible this year. You've got some really cool, maybe even local swag or perks that you can advertise. Steve mentioned earlier RaceJoy. So RaceJoy is our tracking app that enhances the participant and spectator experience. So people can, in Steve's example, there was, people across the country can see how it's going on, or it could be, the family's at home and you're out participating as a participant. They can interact and see how you're doing. The other thing is that Negative Split has found is that, we've hammered on this, but communication and doing these hybrid options really builds trust with participants, because now you're listening to them, you're responding to them, and the more clearly you communicate, the more they understand what you're kind of going to do. And in 2020, Negative Split saw 33% of their participants, even with an in-person option offered, chose virtual. So the Civil Rights Series, Civil Rights Race Series, if you haven't seen this, definitely check this out. It's an incredible event. They had typically been an in-person event, had done some really interesting in-person events. They pivoted to virtual and got 6,000 participants in 2020. They used our referral rewards. That's not something that we've talked about, but we have a whole lot of documentation and videos and things about our referral rewards. But the concept is, if I refer, say, 5 friends, I could get a special hoodie. I could get a full or partial refund on my entry. And what you're trying to do is to get people to be social and talk about your event and try to bring in their friends, and you're offering them an incentive to do that. They leveraged our free websites. That's something else that Steve mentioned a little bit earlier, is that not only can you build a landing page with the GiveSignup, RunSignup platform, but you actually can buy a domain and map that to our system. That sounds very overwhelming, but it's actually pretty easy to do, and we can kind of give you some guidance on how to do that. And that means your entire website is actually hosted by us. It's secure, and it's free. So in the Civil Rights Race Series raised $250,000 in 30 days, and they are looking at hybrid in the future. So again, they have had done in-person events in the past, but now they see virtual and in-person as the future for them. So now let me give Charnel a second to maybe unmute and collate some of those questions together. Charnel, do we have questions that we should discuss with everyone?
Yes, Brian. We've gotten a lot of questions already answered, but there's a few that we've gotten quite a bit on regarding what people should charge for virtual versus in-person events. And I thought this was a great one, just to make sure the rest of the audience hears kind of what you and Steve's thoughts are there. But yeah, a lot of questions specifically about what should people be charging? Should it be the same? Should it be different because something's virtual versus in person?
Steve, you want to take that one? I think you probably got some good answers on that one.
I do. Yeah, I've seen a lot of examples of this, and I would say that the overarching sort of pricing strategy would be to keep them as close together as possible. And the reason for that is that you don't want to erode any value of the experience that you're offering, because you are going to be offering these additional technology features and tools and interactive things like RaceJoy and the results and photos. Plus, I think the other way you can justify it is to include shipping with your virtual folks, and that is a cost. It can be anywhere from $5 to $10 to $12, and if you're shipping internationally, it can be skyrocketing to $25, $35 a person. So I think that people understand that, but it's important to convey that and communicate that right off the bat. And you can do that with a really cool tool called Event Display Options. If you search for it on your dashboard in the menu at the upper left-hand corner and find that, you can embed that within your event tile, or you can add a highlight that adds a really cool little banner on top of the tile that says include shipping, exclamation point. And then you can maybe offer shipping to your live participants as an upgraded cost, maybe $8 to $12 is the standard for that. But I would really recommend to try and keep them together as much as possible, and remembering that you've got a lot of your costs are fixed costs that you cannot avoid. Like your permit is your permit. It's your toilet. Your toilets are your toilets. So those don't go down. A lot of times your incremental costs are pretty minor. So make sure you're covering that and keeping the value of your race.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is if people are looking for specifics on pricing, generally speaking, I've seen about a $5 price increase on most events. So if you used to charge $25, most events are charging $30. If you used to charge $30, they're charging $35. The in-person events in particular have gone up in price for certain types of events. So if you're doing a longer distance event, like a longer cycling event or a longer running event or something like that, I've seen a little bit of a price increase there, just due to the fact that some of these things are costing more. So if it's purely virtual, I would say depending on the experience that you're offering, if you're including shipping, you're probably going to at a minimum be in the $30 to $35 range.
And then I would add some more, because this is a really great question that I think a lot of organizations discuss internally for a long time. And I would say that in general, the $30 to $35 is the average cost of a 5K these days across the country. And I would say that when you're getting into the half and full marathon, you're getting into the $65 to $75 to start. But remember, you can set up price tiers, and those are great motivators to get people to register earlier, and then bump up the price $5 to $10 as you move along in your registration period, and try to stay under $100 with the full and the half. One other point I'll have you think about is in trying to keep those prices similar is that if you do have to pivot from a live to virtual, it avoids a little bit of that conversation or question of, do I get some sort of money back because the virtual is less than the live experience. So you avoid that by keeping them priced the same, or just be really transparent up front, is that if we do transfer, there are no refunds for price differences.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, a few more questions here. One specifically, and these two, actually there's two that kind of go together. We have some folks who have already had live or hybrid events planned and want to know kind of how easy it is to move to a complete virtual event on our platform. And the same with, they already have a live event plan and want to maybe move it to, or add a virtual component, so make it a hybrid event. So how simple and easy is that with our system?
So if you currently have a hybrid event set up and you're thinking about going 100% virtual, we have a set of tools, and some of those you're going to have to make decisions on. We can give you guidance, but you will have to make decisions. So if you want everyone to participate in virtual and you've been clear that if that's what's required for your event, that you'll do that, we have a transfer tool where we can transfer everyone from the in-person event into the virtual event. If you want to, you could potentially say, hey, if that's not your cup of tea, you'd like to wait till next year, we also have a deferral tool. So people could say, I'd prefer to do it next year. And so we can, if you reach out to info@RunSignup or your account manager, we can then give you some guidance on how to best handle that. But you do need to make those decisions kind of ahead of time on if you want to allow people to defer to next year. And if not, then it's a relatively quick process to do that. And then Steve, did you want to take the second question of hey, I'm only doing in-person right now, and I'd like to turn into a hybrid event?
Sure. Yeah, so from the setup standpoint, it's very easy. You're just adding an additional event in the Race Wizard step 1, and then you would want to work on some communications. out to your folks. Folks can, as long as you turn it on within your settings for participant management to allow transfers, you can communicate out to them and say, guess what? We just offered a virtual option. It might be in response to some sort of new mandate in your community. Of the local community, speed that you are comfortable or not comfortable showing up, and give them the instruction, the articles they line about how participants can do that, and then just link to those articles showing people how to easily transfer their registration over. And then it takes all their data, just moves them into that virtual event.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, another question. We have someone who has canceled their fall events, and they're considering hosting some hybrid or virtual events as an option, and they didn't consider it before. So they were asking about some ideas of successful outdoor events that our customers have hosted to raise money for their organization. So I know we have an upcoming webinar next week on Tuesday that's going to dive into that, but wanted to see if you guys have any ideas or examples for them of what they can be doing to raise money this fall.
So one of the interesting things that I've run across is that we're working with this group that's called Takeout 25 Initiative, and we've done a podcast on it that kind of documented how they came to the idea. But essentially, they're partnering with local restaurants and kind of basically doing a co-op with these local restaurants and promoting it and selling tickets and then raising money for local nonprofits. So I thought that was a really great idea, is that you're helping local businesses, you're doing a promotion, and you're generating donations. So that's one idea. I've also personally had experience with, we did a virtual golf tournament. So we went to local private courses that are very hard to get on and asked for a donation of rounds. We got a number of rounds from local private courses. We then marketed it, and that was really successful. We sold some of our rounds like almost instantaneously to some of the most exclusive courses, and that cost us nothing. I mean, the golf course just gave it to us. There was some stipulations on it, like you couldn't use it on the weekends and things like that. But beyond that, they were very generous. And so that's another great idea on like kind of an alternative type of fundraiser. And then, Steve, have you seen anything in person that you thought was, particularly interesting? I think we may have lost Steve. His connection was pretty bad there at the end. In person, I really like the idea of.
I did want to add a few virtual ones too, though, that I would. Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think your connection's bad, Steve. So I think we'll leave that one there. In person, I love the dining under the stars idea, or those types of things where it's completely open air, lots and lots of space, things like that. I think those are really, really good ideas. Charnel, is there any other questions we wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think there was just one more about, and we'll just reiterate this, but one more question about the cost behind using our hybrid or virtual event capabilities.
Yeah, so if you're using the GiveSignup, RunSignup platform, there's no setup fee, there's no monthly fee. It's a free platform to use. So you say, well, how do we make money? Very simply, if someone signs up for your event and they pay $30 for the 5K, they're going to pay a processing fee. That processing fee, we generally recommend, would be paid by the participant signing up for your event. So they would pay $30 plus the processing fee, which is what you would see like if you're signing up on Eventbrite or if you're signing up for an event on Ticketmaster. Our fees are hopefully fairer, and they're right on our website. So you can go to either GiveSignup or RunSignup.com and see those processing fees. But there's there's no fee that you're going to trigger by turning on, say, our email platform or our virtual race platform. It's absolutely free to use. If you have free participants because they're sponsors, they can get into the platform 100% for free. We also can help you with your donations. So if you want to collect donations or you want to do peer-to-peer fundraising, we can help you with that. There's no setup fee, there's no monthly fee. That is free as well. and it's a processing fee on the donation, which is 4%, and that is included. That includes everything that we do, so there's no extra fees beyond that. And you can either pass that on to the donor, you can split it, or you can include it, or you can give the donor the option of whether they'd like to cover it or not. So we've really tried to keep it very simple. You can come and go as you please. So you can set up one campaign with us and never use us again. You can start it and stop it. That's completely up to you. We believe that it's our job to deliver you technology and not contracts and obligations. It's just help you raise money.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. Well, that is all the questions we have for today. Thank you. Big thank you to both Brian and Steve for this great presentation today. And thank you to everyone who was able to join in and listen. I also just want to remind everyone the recorded webinar will be sent out to all registrants. Whether you attended or did not attend, you will get this PowerPoint and the presentation tomorrow as with follow-up. And just one other reminder, if you are looking for more examples of campaigns and events you can be hosting this fall, we have part 2 of this webinar series on Tuesday at 1 p.m. next week. So please make sure you register and tune in for that great session as well. So thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you again on another one of our webinars. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.